Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to the Kulturecast. I'm Chris Stachiw, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Eric Niss of Wavoka.
What's up?
Returning MVP.
I guess, dude. You just... Oh, man.
Downtown Eric Brown, dude.
Yeah, going downtown to Browntown.
Downtown to Browntown.
I don't know where Browntown is or where...
Everybody knows where Browntown is.
I mean, yeah, that's true. So
speaking of Browntown...
Oh, man, that's what this movie should have been called.
Not Snowtown, should we call it Browntown? We're going to be talking about... We're going to be talking about Brown... Oh, God. Wow. That was completely unintentional. We are going to be talking about Snowtown, otherwise known as the Snowtown Murders.
Yeah.
From 2011, directed by Justin Kurzel, who you might know as the guy who just directed... another massive movie that flopped in 2016, Assassin's Creed.
Oh, shit. He directed Assassin's Creed?
Mm-hmm. He directed...
Assassin's Creed?
Yeah, he directed Ass Creed. He directed Assassin's Creed, and he also directed 2015's Macbeth with Michael Fassbender.
Oh, so him and Michael Fassbender just like to fuck up movies.
Well, Macbeth was pretty good, but Assassin's Creed, from what I've heard, is not. But before we talk about Snowtown... Eric, been watching anything on any streaming services recently?
Not streaming, but I did watch that movie Ouija, Origin of Evil last night.
Ouija board?
Ouija.
A Ouija?
Yes,
a Luigi board?
A Luigi board. All right, so I watched a Luigi, Origin of Luigi.
A Luigi board.
A Luigi, Origin of Luigi.
Luigi.
I'm a Mario, and he's a Luigi Mario.
Oh, God. It's gonna, come up every time you and I do a podcast together.
It's my favorite fucking movie.
That's the fungus, dude.
Oh, my God. Seriously, it's got to be in, my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
So tell us about Ouija.
So Ouija, Origin of Evil, not to be confused with the Ouija non-other qualifiers name of a couple of years ago.
Isn't this a sequel or a prequel?
It's a prequel, I think. Well, I don't know if it's a direct prequel because I didn't watch the first one. Well, I watched 30 minutes of it and I was like, fuck this piece of shit. But this movie that came out last year, oh God, I don't know when it came out, but it's on iTunes right now if you want to buy it or rent it, maybe. I don't know. It's directed by Mike Flanagan, who I am a big fan of. He did Oculus and...
a WWE production. It is. Look it up. I'm not kidding.
I think I knew that, yeah. But Oculus, the big Hollywood movie, was actually based on a short that he did like 10 or 15 years ago now. That's called Oculus Phase 3, The Man with the Plan, I think is what it's like, the full title of it. If you can get your hands on that, which is kind of hard to find, like if you do some digging on the internet, you can find it. It's amazing. It's like 30, 40 minutes. The premise is really simple. It's sort of the same premise as the movie Oculus, if you've ever seen it. Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
Okay. So Oculus is fantastic. I've been a big fan of his ever since I saw that short like a long time ago. And then he did this other movie called Absentia, which is really good. God, yeah, he did a bunch of cool stuff. Anyways, like he's a very stylized director. And he does these things that are really creepy in like a really good way. And he comes from an editing background, so he knows how to really like create shots and set things up in a way from the get-go that is going to translate later on into being like these really cool, really creepy, strange things. And that comes across really well in this movie, I think. The little girl that they have in this movie that plays like the main character really is like the fucking creepiest little girl ever. I don't know. It's a cool movie. It's a period piece. It's based in like the 60s. And so it's like a family, a single mom and her 2 daughters, and they like do this whole psychic reading business, and they decide to add a Ouija board, and then shit starts to go sideways. And I don't know. It's cool. I really liked it, actually. I was really surprised by how much I liked it.
And it's got Doug Jones in it, best of my knowledge.
Doug Jones. Oh, the priest.
Abe Sapien from Hellboy?
No, not the priest. Oh, yeah. Doug Jones. Duh. Yeah, he plays, he plays the creature, which is what he plays in every movie.
I was about to say, that's Doug Jones in everything he's ever in is, Doug Jones as a monster of some sort.
Yeah, but he's honestly the best. And like, I didn't even think about that it was Doug Jones until I watched like the little 10-minute making of spiel like after the movie, and they were like, "Hey, Doug Jones," and I was like, "Oh, no fucking way! Of course he is." And then you watch like the sequences that he's in, because he's only in a sequence for like a really short amount of time, and it's totally him. Like you could tell immediately, like he's just got that movement and I don't know, that menace just like down, where he could just be any horrifying, scary thing, and it's like immediately recognizable as him.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It was a surprising horror movie from last year that I did not go and see because I was like, fucking Ouija, really? Ugh. And then I kind of found out later that Mike Flanagan did it, and I was like, oh shit, all right. So maybe it's good. It's got a decent score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like in the 80s or something like that, so it's definitely worth checking out.
That's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Considering how I didn't hear anything about it because it wasn't The Witch or Don't Breathe.
I mean, it's a Blumhouse movie, so, and those guys put out, 30 fucking movies a year. So,
yeah.
I don't know. The other Blumhouse movie that I never got around to watching last year that now I'll probably watch that got like semi-decent reviews as well is that movie Lights Out.
I have that one downloaded. I have not watched it yet.
Yeah. I don't know. It's based off of that really sort of famous YouTube short from like, I don't know, a few years back. And it's interesting to me that they took this little short that's like this perfectly set up little thing and made it into a full-fledged like 1.5 long, 2-hour long movie.
Right.
With like a full backstory and everything, which always kind of weirds me out. I'm always like, okay, so how are they going to create some backstory to try and explain this thing? In those types of situations, I'm almost like, just don't explain it. Just have it be a thing.
Right.
That's my gripe with a lot of horror movies now, is that everything is fucking explained like overtly and like to death. And I'm just like, oh, that takes all the fun out of everything.
Yeah, but that's the way people want it now. That's why they make prequels to everything as well. So as for me, I haven't been really watching a whole lot other than the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So there's been some stuff I wanted to watch on Netflix. Yeah. I just haven't gotten around to it.
What are you wanting to watch on Netflix?
There's 2 Werner Herzog documentaries on Netflix right now that I really want to check out. The one about volcanoes, which I forget the name of that one. And then there's, lo and behold, Reveries of a Connected World, which is his about, like, technology. And I love Werner Herzog. I mean, we did Werner Herzog month last year, and I was the champion of that month. So Werner Herzog movies are great. His documentaries are awesome. So... But I feel like we're kind of like trying to stop ourselves from talking about this movie because this is a rough movie.
It's not the easiest watch. It's definitely, it's not a fun movie. Like
this is not a movie I'm not sure I would suggest to anyone because you have to be like a very specific mindset to watch this film. So Snowtown came out in 2011. Like I said before, directed by Justin Kurzel, who would go on to direct Macbeth in 2015, and Assassin's Creed in 2016, just came out a couple weeks back. IMDb synopsis for the film is, based on true events, 16-year-old Jamie falls in with his mother's new boyfriend and his crowd of self-appointed neighborhood watchmen, a relationship that leads to a spree of torture and murder.
G'day, mate. I'm John. How you doing, Steve? You alright? Pretty good. Nice to meet you.
I've had a gutful. Right, we're sitting here. Some little kid's being touched up.
What do you think about that?
I don't think I should be doing that.
I don't think I should be doing that, do you? You want to go up a gear? Yeah. You're a natural, mate.
You think your mum's going to like these? Oh, probably not, but who cares? Do you mind if I stay over? Of course, mate. You ever shot a gun before? Feel good? So why not do something about it?
It's your brother Barry. I thought you should know I'm on my way to Queensland. I don't know if I'm going to hitch all the way or catch the bus. Don't reckon I'll be home for a while, mate. Can you tell Mum?
You don't need to worry, right? They're nobody, mate. They're nothing.
You suggested this film, but I had already picked it out for the month. So, Eric, sitting down and watching it again last night, what are your thoughts on it?
It is a rough movie filled with, I don't even know where to begin. The subject matter of this movie is really rough subject matter, even just to begin with. You know, like the whole fact that all of this is like based on a real series of murders that actually happened in this fashion, more or less, makes it that much worse. And just like watching these people and how they deal with things, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where there are parts of this movie where you feel like you're on the side of the people who are doing all these horrible things. And then those horrible things start to happen. And then you're like, no, wait, maybe not. Maybe this is too much. Maybe these people are taking this too far. And so it's like one of those things where you can totally see how these people who are dealing with these issues of like, you know, children getting molested and, you know, people getting raped and, you know, dealing with, you know, neighbors who are sex offenders and, you know, and then it starts to like spread further than that. And that's kind of where, you know, that's kind of where the characters in this movie sort of like head down this like road that they can't come back from type of thing. You know, it starts with this family who gets kind of, you know, they live in kind of like a poorer area.
White trash Australia.
Yeah, it's totally white trash Australia. You know, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you know, mom's boyfriend from across the street starts taking naked pictures of her kids or whatever, and God knows what else or whatever. Plus, you get just like full frontal eye full of dick, like within like the first 15 minutes of this movie. So that sets you off in a pretty. I
mean, it's pretty jarring.
It just like kind of gets into it, and then it just like gets more molesty like as the movie goes on, and there's like a sequence where, you know, one of the like brothers, or it's like a half brother, I think, like actually full on rapes like his other half brother.
Yep.
And those sequences just kind of come out of nowhere. Like there's no real setup for any of this. Like it all just kind of happens. So then in comes like this guy out of nowhere, and like nobody, I don't think they ever really explain like where this guy came from or how he came into these people's lives. He just kind of showed up.
He was introduced by the cross-dresser.
By Barry?
Was it not the case?
I think so.
But that's so strange then, right?
But Barry straight up like bounces or gets murdered.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's so strange then that he would have introduced them.
It is strange, especially because like as the movie goes on, you know, like when Barry first shows up, he's like, you know, I heard about what happened to your kids, blah, blah, blah. I have this guy, you know, who might be able to help you out. I think that's kind of how it goes down. And then you have, you know, I think his name's John, the sort of like main bad evil dude.
John Bunting, isn't it? Okay, so I'm glad that I'm not the only one who had a hard time like picking up on names in this film.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because like I don't know. I
don't think it's because they have the Australian accent. I think it's because they never really say their names.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, I guess if you're Australian, like you know who right, everybody like is.
Yeah, and that's I think that's kind of the issue is that as Americans we are not familiar with this story.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of this, like these series of murders that were really going on for the better part of 10 years, like in the 90s. So I don't know. It wasn't until like, I guess all of this kind of started around like 1992 or 93. I did some research on this after I watched the movie. And so I think that's kind of where this movie sort of picks up, is like in the beginning, like this is the start of this sort of right. Like it's sort of the creation of, because it's really those three main guys. So it's John Bunting and then the kid,
Jamie,
and yeah. And then John's friend
Robert, who like has no lines in the entire film.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything. He looks like a Russian mafia guy and never says a word the entire movie. And I guess there's like a fourth person that they kind of show you like a couple of times during the movie, and they actually kind of touch on what he was inevitably like arrested for. He was, I guess, never really convicted of any of the murders, but he was convicted of plotting to murder his wife and then helping them dispose of the body. And they actually, after I looked that up, I was like, oh, then that sequence where he's talking about how his wife is, you know, becoming a huge pain in the ass makes a lot of sense, because right. That's the guy who was convicted of this other stuff. So after doing some research after the fact, I nailed down who all the characters were, and I was like, okay, now this story makes a little bit more sense. But if you go into it cold, it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. It's going to be hard for you to follow who is who and what exactly is happening and why. Yeah, it's just, and it's made all the more worse by how rough this movie is. Like, you know, buffer Australian Nick Jonas just does not have a good time in this movie.
I don't know if you've seen The Loved Ones, but this movie reminded me a lot of that. And these Australian horror films, because it's kind of like a horror movie in a way. I mean, obviously not in a traditional sense, but it's a horror movie in a sense that horrible things are happening. At the same time, it's this kind of, you know, crime drama biographical film.
Yeah,
they really know how to just lay into the audience.
It's really, it really doesn't feel like a horror movie to me at all. It feels like a biographical true crime, like, you know, I mean, I watched Ouija right after I watched this movie because I needed a palate cleanser, because this movie was really rough. So I directly watched a straight up horror movie after this, and I felt better after that. So this movie is, I wouldn't even remotely call it a horror movie because I don't know. There's just no, I mean, I don't know. There are horror movies that are rough like this movie, but this movie is made all the more horrible by the fact that it's all real, or at least all based on real things that actually happened.
Right.
So I don't know. And, you know, they get to the end of the movie where Jamie, you know, like the kid who has basically become like John's protege, and unwilling for most of the movie, you know, like he's just kind of this kid who was roped into doing this shit because you have this guy who's like this strong male figure in his life
that isn't wanting to rape him.
Right. That he's never really had before. So he's like, hey, this guy who was like a father figure then molested him. And so you have John who comes in and says, fuck that, you know, like we're going to fucking, you know, harass this guy until he fucking leaves, you know, and then he's like, okay, we're going to find these other fucking child molesters in the fucking neighborhood and we're going to fucking, you know, kick them out, or we're going to fucking murder them, you know, because they shouldn't be here doing this shit in the first place. But then it sort of spirals and Jamie ends up like, you know, strangling his own half brother to death, you know, because after John finds out that he, you know, raped Jamie, you know, it's game over after that, which, I mean, talk about your fucked up family dynamic, but I don't know.
I'll say this much about this film because I didn't like this movie.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't think it's any fault I don't think it's the movie's fault. If that
it's not,
because it's telling a true story.
And it's not that the movie was made poorly.
No, it's not a bad movie.
No, I mean, if it was subject material that like I knew, you know, going into the movie, like I'm sure a lot of people in Australia inherently just know, because, you know, of how big this whole case was. It was like apparently one of the longest, if not the longest, most drawn out cases. Yeah, in Australian history. So, you know, everybody who sort of like lived through that, you know, in the early 2000s, you know, is going to watch this movie and remember and be like, oh my God, this is kind of how all of this shit started. This is crazy.
But as an American approaching this film without any prior knowledge of the case or what John Bunting and Jamie Vlassakis did, I followed this movie, but I had a hard time following it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like really towards the tail end. Yeah.
It doesn't really use dialogue. It's pretty minimalist on the dialogue. It's minimalist on the plot as well.
It's a really emotionally driven movie. Yeah. It's sort of, you're really following Jamie for like the entirety of the movie. You're basically following him from innocent young kid to, you know, full on like no remorse murderer.
Who kills his half-brother, his other half-brother.
But I mean, at that point, like, he's still really torn about this whole thing, even after the horrible shit. I'm talking about his other
half-brother at the end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fucking right.
Yeah.
See, I had totally forgot that they were even related.
Yeah. And he kills his other half-brother at the end of the film, and you don't even know why. It's never explained why.
Yeah, it's a type of thing where that's where like John Bunting's like whole, you know, like being I don't know, it's not really like a cult thing, but you can see it sort of is that cult mentality on like a really small scale with like only a couple of people. You know, John Bunting has that sort of perfect storm where he's like a likable guy, you know, who becomes this kid's, you know, surrogate father figure, you know, and he comes in with all the best intentions, you know, and he's making everybody breakfast and he's treating the family, you know, perfectly and, you know, doing all of this stuff great. And, you know, he sort of gets in these kids' good graces, but then starts to flip it and sort of instill his own twisted values on these kids, you know, and he's, you know, like obviously is very harsh on like, you know, anybody who's going to hurt or touch a child inappropriately. But then it stretches even further than that after the sort of initial thing where, you know, he starts to really drive hard against like anybody who's a homosexual. And then it goes even farther than that to anybody who's like not like a blatant anybody who's not, sort of like that strong male presence, like if you are deemed weak by John, even if you're not openly gay or a pedophile or anything like that, if you are just a weak man, then it's possible for you to like fall prey to John's, like standards of what he would consider, unworthy. And it's crazy how, that sort of evolves throughout the movie as well. It starts with them just harassing this guy who was a pedophile until he fucking leaves. And then they kill, a couple of pedophiles. And then you have Barry, the trans guy, who leaves, which at the beginning, Barry is kind of this completely accepted, like everybody's totally cool with him. And then 15 minutes later into the movie, everybody's like, shut the fuck up, Barry. Who the fuck are you, Barry? Give us the fucking names of all your fucking pedophile friends, Barry. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, they really turned on Barry really hard.
Yeah. I found a lot of this really hard to follow. Because they were just like, at the beginning, you get the sense that Daniel Henshall's character, John Bunting, he has like a set of principles about how he's going to do things and who he's targeting. And then halfway through the film, all of a sudden, he's killing his friend, quote unquote, the character of Barry, the trans gay man. He just kills him. And then he kills Jamie's friend Gavin, who just like does drugs. So he kills him for no reason. And it's just, I get that this is supposed to be a character driven drama about killers and what drives people to commit murder, but it's, I know, and that this is a good movie.
It's a well-made
movie.
And the fact that both of us like immediately are like, guys, this movie was really rough. Like, honestly.
That should say something to you.
It should say something about the movie because it had a really strong emotional impact on both of us. Like, to the point where I don't want to watch this movie again. Like, we've both seen, and we've both talked about this, how we have both seen some really disturbing and really rough movies.
A Serbian film.
And I would say that this movie is up there with some of those movies, like where it's on my don't need to ever watch again list. Like, there's no reason, like at that point, it just becomes like an endurance test of like how much of like this depressing, just utter bullshit I can take. And that's kind of what this movie is. Like, it's sort of, and because of how like slow paced it is and because of how emotionally driven it is, as opposed to dialogue or plot, it just sort of becomes like an endurance test of like, how much of this can you take before you're like, I'm done. So
I'm not a huge fan of movies like that.
Like, we kind of talked about this a little bit with Zodiac, how because Zodiac is so long and drawn out, and there's no real resolution at the end, it's a frustrating movie. But Zodiac isn't like a marathon endurance test like this movie is. And Zodiac's like a good hour longer.
Yeah, this movie feels longer than Zodiac.
Yeah, and it's like almost an hour shorter.
Yeah, this movie is only 2 hours long.
Yeah, so that should say a lot about like the way that this movie was made and sort of like the style that this movie is sort of going for, is really just to like shit on your fucking breakfast. Like, there's a lot of things that I can say about this movie, but it's tough.
I like the performances. I think the performances are good. But yeah. I think ultimately my main issue with this film is it does feel like an endurance test. It feels like it's challenging you to watch the film and not look away. And yeah. I understand the merit of that sentiment. I understand the point of making a film like that. But I think my problem with something like that is if you're going to force me to endurance test myself to watch the film because it's so emotionally draining, you have to understand that at the end of it, I may not like the film because of that.
Yeah, and I don't think this movie was meant to be liked. I mean...
Oh, no, it's not. It's not. This is not supposed to be a film that people really quote unquote like. I mean, I think people see the artistic quality of the film, but I don't think anyone like sits and's like, yeah, this is my favorite movie. Like, oh, what?
Yeah, no, it's like, and the subject matter too is like one of those things where if you're going to tackle subject matter like this, like you got to go into this knowing like, hey, we're going to tell this story. and this is going to suck, and nobody's going to come out of this movie feeling better. You know, it's just a bummer of a terrible, horrible movie.
And there's not even gore. It's not a gory film.
No, I mean, there are parts, you know, where you see people like beaten and bloodied, and like maybe you see a couple of dead bodies, but like that's it. Like it's not like a slasher by any means. You know, the most like gory sequence is when Jamie like kills his brother in the bathtub. But that sequence is way more rough, like for way different reasons, you know, than just like the overt like gore that's happening. So, I mean, yeah, thinking back on like a couple of the sequences of this movie, there are like some parts that were really, it was like, oh man, oh, this scene just won't end. Oh, just finish it already. Just fucking do it.
And I don't like shit like that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to watch. It's definitely not something that I would suggest to anybody to watch. As like a true crime narrative, you know, sort of presented as a, you know, as a film instead of as like a documentary. It really definitely made me interested in the subject matter, you know, and I did quite a bit of research on it after the fact.
And I like Daniel Henshall in the film. He's good. He is believable as John Bunting. And
his performance is really, really good. He's got all the, you know, he hits all the points, like I was saying, of that sort of like that sort of like serial murderer, cult leader type of, you know, persona, you know, like where
very charismatic.
Yeah, where you're a really likable person and you can really get people to go along with, you know, what you're saying and what you're doing because of, you know, the fact that you're so charismatic or the fact that you're such a likable person and all of this stuff. And, you know, when he first shows up in the movie, you know, everybody's totally cool with him. He's a great guy. And then, you know, 15 minutes later, you're like, this guy's not the best.
I think my favorite scene in the film, though, is the scene where they like invite a bunch of people from their neighborhood over. And they're all sitting there, and he's like, well, what would you do to a child molester? And they're like, oh, I would cut his dick off and feed it to him. And they're like talking this big game, and he's like, but would you actually do any of it? And then that's when they like completely clam up.
Yeah. No, that was like,
and he's already committed crimes. So you've already seen him be terrible. So you know he's capable of it.
Right, exactly. And so like, it's those sequences, you know, where he starts to, it's almost like he's getting permission from the neighborhood to like start doing these horrible things.
Right.
You know, he's like making it so that, hey, it's almost like he's giving them warning without overtly giving them warning. He's like, hey, so if he's sort of saying this without actually saying it, where he kind of says, if these pedophiles show up dead or disappear and you never hear from them again, is anybody going to actually miss them? Will you rejoice because a pedophile is dead? Or, you know, are there people here who are sympathetic to their, you know, things? And it's, you know, then you have the one guy, God, I forget what his name was, but they sort of like confront him. And he's like standing outside of the school, like at the bus stop or something, like watching the kids leave the school. And they say like, aren't you a little close? Like blah, blah, blah. You know, and then they go to like his, I don't know if it was like his friends or his sisters or something, somebody's house. And he lives in like a trailer, like in their backyard or something like that. And like, they're just basically scouting this guy out. And you know, that guy fucking dies. Yeah, there's a lot of off-screen deaths in this movie, which I'm kind of grateful for. I don't know, but I think it definitely builds the sort of like emotional atmosphere of this.
Again, I think it raises some interesting questions about like vigilantism and being a vigilante and taking the law into your old hands.
So yeah, at the beginning of this movie, you really kind of go along with John and kind of say, you know, like, here's this guy who hears about this family of kids that were all molested by this fucking douchebag in the neighborhood, you know, and at first it just kind of seems like, okay, so this guy isn't going to stand for this shit, you know, and at first it's all like pretty harmless stuff. You know, they just get ice cream and then write fag in ice cream on the fucking dude's house. And then like he fucking kills a couple of fucking kangaroos. And then just like spreads their like entrails and shit all over the guy's fucking like porch and front door and stuff. And then, the guy ends up, leaving or whatever. And you're like, cool. Yeah. You're like, all right, cool. That guy was a fucking piece of shit. But then after that, it just starts to escalate. And then that's when all the sort of likableness of John sort of like goes out the window. And it really becomes more of this, like, you're watching John change Jamie from like an innocent kid who just was, man. I mean, that kid.
It's wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, it's just, there was no fucking hope for that kid, man. Molested by, a neighbor, father figure, then, raped by your own, brother and things like that. It's like, how do you come back from something like that? And then you have this guy who steps in and he's like, I'm going to fucking show you how to fucking deal with this. And that was it. That's like, it's really, this whole thing is like the making of, a serial killer. And like I've said before, the actor who plays Jamie in the movie really sort of portrays sort of the innocence in the very beginning of the movie to his real like struggle and reluctance, to do these horrible things. Like in the middle of the movie, when he kills his own brother in the bathtub, he fucking strangles him to death. He's like, really doesn't fucking want to do that. He's like really having a hard time. He's like watching his brother get tortured and he's like, I gotta go outside. And the guy's like, get your ass back in here and fucking watch this. And he's like losing it, and he almost like, it really sort of seemed to me like he killed his own brother out of like pity for them torturing him. He was like, just fucking do it already. Like, I can't fucking stand, what you're doing to him. Just fucking, if you're going to finish it, finish it.
Yeah, no, he totally kills his brother out of sympathy for him.
Yeah. It's like sort of like this combo of like sympathy, hatred, like type of thing. Like I don't know. It's like it's some mercy killing, but you don't kill your own brother strictly out of like mercy, at least in that fashion.
Right.
But yeah. And then like the end of the movie, he's just like this, sort of like stark, emotionless
killer.
Just killer. Yeah. Like in the final,
not even a killer. He's a lackey.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's really like broken down, like from the beginning of the movie where he seems like a, normal kid. He's playing video games. He's, having family time or whatever and doing all this stuff. Even after he gets molested by the fucking first guy, he's still, yeah, okay, he gets touched. And whatever else happened, but he still seems like semi-normal. And then like, as the fucking shit starts to pile up on this kid, he just becomes more broken and broken and broken. And by the end of the movie, he's just nothing. He's just a shell. And that's kind of really what the focus of this movie is sort of like, how do you get to this point? How do you get from innocent kid to, emotionless, sort of like lackey killer. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So we talked a little bit about the fact that this film's hard to watch. And how it's a film that you and I don't have any interest in rewatching anytime soon. And we touched a little bit about some films that are similar. Tell me about, for you, some other films that are similar to this film and that you don't ever want to watch them again.
Hey, Rock.
Irreversible is one of those movies that like I don't really feel like I ever need to watch again. There's a really long rape sequence in that movie that's fucking tough. It's really bad. It's like a total revenge movie, but just like for the one sequence that sort of like sparks the whole revenge of the movie, it's like one of those things where like I don't need to watch that. I feel like most of the films that like irk me in such a way that I never want to watch them again all revolve around like rape and molestation and things like that. Like that's like my threshold. I can watch people get dismembered and, brutally ripped apart, murder-wise, tortured for the most part all day long. Like, that's totally fine. Gore, I am totally cool with, but it's like the emotional, I don't know. It's like that extra emotional horror that sort of comes with, like rape and molestation is the thing that like really makes it so that it's hard for me to watch stuff. So we already mentioned a Serbian film. That's a fucking,
I feel like a Serbian film really goes out of its way, though.
It really does. It's like, it's one of those movies where it's like, hey, Japanese horror films where they're really extreme, we're going to give you a fucking Eastern European version of extreme horror.
And it's beyond extreme.
It's beyond okay. It's like, that's like one of those movies that is 100% a marathon to get through from start to finish. It's like one of those things where it keeps getting worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it doesn't get any better.
And as it ends, it's even worse.
Yes. So,
at the end, it's even worse than you possibly thought it could be.
Yeah. It really gets a whole lot worse, and it never gets any better. It's like one of those movies, like, I'm all about movies that, like, don't have happy endings. Like, I think happy endings ruin a lot of, like,
which is, by the
horror
way, a traditional American issue with films is that movies have to have happy endings.
Yeah, and I don't want to have happy endings. That's, why I don't like movies like The Conjuring and things like that, because you make this wonderful movie, and you make this sort of, like, classic horror piece, and then you just fucking end it on a Brady Bunch horror note. Like, oh, everybody lived at the end. And I'm like, no, I want everybody to die. Like, I want this family to be eaten apart and then just no redemption. But there's like a difference between like a horror movie and then these like sort of, I don't know what to call it. It's like almost like a snuff film.
There's gotta be a term for it, because I don't know. Like, I don't know the term for it.
Yeah, because it's not, I wouldn't categorize it as like, I wouldn't categorize this movie or a movie like a Serbian film or a movie like Irreversible or something like that as a horror movie. I also wouldn't really categorize it as like a drama, because this is beyond drama. This is, I don't know. It's, I don't know. This movie for sure, Snowtown it's like a biographical true crime movie. But like beyond that, it's, the qualifiers just like aren't really there for like what you're getting yourself into when you watch this movie.
No, and I think that ultimately with a film like this, with a film like a Serbian film, they are there to tell this really intense story, but I don't think that there's a way or reason to watch it.
Yeah. More than
once.
I keep going back to, because this movie is so like molestation and rape heavy, like in some parts. Have you ever seen I Spit on Your Grave? Like either the original or the remake. It doesn't really matter.
I have not.
Movie. That's a pretty rough movie to watch, because, the whole basis of that movie is you have these like rednecks out in the middle of the woods who like a bunch of dudes rape and brutalize this woman and then leave her for dead out in the middle of nowhere. But that movie, or that series of movies, because I guess they have made several of them now, which I don't understand how you keep making several of these movies. It's got to be the same movie over and over again. The one redeeming quality that movie or those movies have that something like this movie doesn't is she survives. She gets up and she gets revenge. So you have sort of like this satisfaction that you don't get from something like Snowtown. And I get that this is a biographical movie and you're not supposed to have a happy ending. This is not a happy story that has a happy ending. It only gets worse. This is like the very beginning of this killing spree that lasts almost 10 years. And then they finally, figure out what's going on and they catch these guys. And then there's this huge long trial, and it ends up being like 4 or 5 people who are convicted.
This is not the kind of movie that I want to watch again. Any more than you.
No.
Any more than you do.
No. Yeah. I want to say that I'm glad I watched it, but I'm not. I'm not glad that I watched it. I could have lived without watching this movie. The subject material is interesting. And we sort of talked about this with Zodiac, is if you are into true crime stuff, then this movie kind of gives you a peek that you aren't going to get just from straight up, Googling the information, things like that. And I don't know, what kind of liberties that this movie took with the character development or things like that. But this movie definitely sparked my interest enough to make me look up the actual information of what happened with, the Snowtown murders and with the trial and, where this story went after the movie ended.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. In that sense, the movie did its job well. In the sense where I felt entertained, I was not entertained.
I'm not sure that the film is there to entertain.
No. It's really not. And every once in a while, you watch movies that are like that. You watch movies that are just like, they're not there to help you out or make your day any better. They're just there to fucking make you sad and emotional and want to eat a whole pound of cake.
And take it takes such a non-issue stance on the film, like on the goings on. It doesn't really, because like we said, it doesn't really paint them as like outright bad guys.
No, it really like just presents all of this information like in a really
make your own decision kind of way.
Yeah, it just kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say like nonchalant, but it's just kind of like it's just very matter of fact. Everything is just like, and then John killed this guy. And then that was it. And they buried 2 fucking people in the backyard. And then, at the very end of the movie, they set up all of those fucking, all of those big like tubs. And they're like, yeah, dude, we're going to throw these bodies in these fucking tubs.
So, final thoughts on the film. Out of 5, how would you rate this film?
God, I'm torn. I mean, I want to give it a higher rating because it did its job really effectively and emotionally impacted me in such a way that even just talking about this movie is like making me not want to talk about this movie. But then on the other end of that coin, because it left me with such a bad taste in my mouth, like I want to give it a lower rating. I don't know. I'm going to give this movie like a 3.5, maybe 4 out of 5 because of how effective it was.
Right.
The storytelling is pretty, it's not, there's no storytelling. It's a character study. And so, it definitely made me interested in learning more about the story. And so it was effective in that regard. And it was really effective as a character study for, Jamie and John, to a lesser extent. But this movie really sort of like is based around their relationship, specifically on Jamie and how he, went from this innocent kid to like a full-blown serial killer. So effective movie, 100%. Yes. A watchable movie. No. So.
No, I completely agree. I would give the film if we're just talking as a film, like probably a 4 out of 5. It's a good movie. However, I don't want to watch it again. And so traditional logic would denote that is the sign of a bad movie, is I don't want to watch it again. But it's in that regard, it's not a bad movie. It's a movie that I feel like is so malicious in the way that it does things and malicious in the way that it presents the events in the film. And mind you, the events in the film are very rough. I mean, there are people being murdered and dissolved in hydrochloric acid. So this is not a light subject matter anyways.
Yeah.
It's just, I think for most people, they have never heard of this movie. Mm-hmm. B, have no interest in hearing of this movie, and C, if they watch this movie, they probably couldn't even make it past, I don't know, the first hour.
Yeah, I mean, there was that sequence, I don't know. The sequence that sort of just comes out of nowhere for me that like really made me go, oh, fuck, what am I doing? Was the sequence when the brother like rapes Jamie.
Out of
nowhere.
Completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, and so I'm just like watching that kind of going, this is, why is this even happening? It's just one of those things where like where there really is no explanation, there is no good source of like why or how, it just kind of is. And so, like I said, this movie is made all the worse because it's real, because a lot of this,
and the performances
all of this
are
really happened. Yeah, all of this really happened. If it happened exactly in the way that this movie portrayed, it's sort of like, who knows? But
it's neither here nor there, honestly.
It doesn't really matter. Just the fact that all of this actually happened, that these murders actually took place, that, this family and this neighborhood and this innocent kid were subjected to all of this, and it really changed
It changed the city of Snowtown. The city of Snowtown is like forever changed. The character, Jamie as a human being is forever changed.
What's crazy is I looked it up afterwards, and I think it was like only one of the murders were even committed in Snowtown. Like most of them were committed outside of Snowtown. But it was just like where all the bodies were found was in Snowtown. That's where all the stigma sort of comes, from the name. And apparently, after all these murders sort of like, came out in the public eye and everything, like Snowtown became like a pretty like heavily,
I think people were going to visit it.
Yeah, there was a lot of like tourists like now coming to Snowtown to see, the town that, all of these bodies were found in and everything like that, which is like crazy to me. I mean, I don't know. There's always going to be people who are going to like be drawn to that kind of stuff. And like, I am to a certain extent, but like, I don't know.
It's pretty morbid.
I mean, yeah, like I'm not going to go out of my way, to go to a town in the middle of fucking nowhere, Australia, to see maybe, the storage unit where all the fucking, vats with the bodies were. Like I'm not that into it.
Yeah, but there are people out there that are, clearly.
There are, yeah. And apparently, like they were saying that they were like, oh, maybe we should change the name of the town so that, people won't be drawn here as much as they are now. And I don't know if any of that ever happened, but it's really interesting sort of the effect that these murders kind of had in just like a greater sense, right. Other than like the obvious, destruction of
loss of life.
Yeah. Loss of life and like, destruction of these families. And I don't know. It's I don't know. If we're just talking about like an interesting subject matter and like true crime stuff, it's interesting.
I think with like any other true crime thing though, like after a while you feel icky. You feel like dirty after, like not dirty, but it takes an emotional strain on you, regardless of the kind of like, even if you sat and watched like Investigation Discovery all day for a week, you would feel like emotionally drained. Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of that going on. Especially with, I don't know, with something that happened so recently, all of this, the trial happened like 15 years ago. So, all of these murders were taking place, when we were kids, in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's all of this stuff that like you just don't hear about, you can look back on, mass murderers, people like Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer and, the Night Stalker and like even, Charles Manson, even though he didn't actually kill anybody himself, but all of that kind of stuff. And because it happened so long ago, it sort of has become like a legend more than like an actual thing, or things like, even Zodiac. Stuff like that. Even the unsolved stuff, it really becomes more legend than it becomes reality.
Right.
After a certain time. And because this stuff is so fresh and these people are all still, like alive.
And these people were our age when they were young too.
Yeah. So yeah, when this kid is up for parole, I guess he'll be like 45 and it'll be the year like 2025. So in like 10 years. This kid will be up for parole, and he's only like 10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe a little less, but yeah. But I'm just thinking like, holy shit, man.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah. It's definitely, I don't know. It's a good and a bad movie. And I think it's bad because it's so good, because it's so effective. And that's kind of like what makes this movie good.
It's so effective at doing what it's supposed to do that you don't want to watch it again. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, I mean, yeah, this is kind of like the situation where you want to say that it probably has a higher rating because it's such an effective movie. And obviously somebody thought that the director of this movie did a really good job because he was given, larger films to direct with more notable casts.
Assassin's Creed.
He's now directed Assassin's Creed, and before that he did Macbeth, which I haven't seen, but apparently is pretty good. And Michael Fassbender is a pretty damn good actor as far as I can tell. So, I don't know. I want to say it's probably, Maybe like high 70s, like low 80s, maybe, like on the optimistic side for this movie. I don't know.
83%. It's a bleak and brutal endurance test, but for viewers with the strength and patience to make it to the end, Snowtown will prove an uncommonly powerful viewing experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, about 100%. So it's like we said, this movie is an endurance test. So if you can make it all the way through, pat yourself on the back, go get yourself some fucking ice cream, and then like watch a couple hours of cartoons.
Watch something else.
Yeah. Oh, like I watched a horror movie directly after this movie, and I felt immensely better after watching this fucking creepy little girl for like fucking an hour and a half. So
it's better than this, which is just emotionally draining. And then Daniel Henshall was in The Babadook as well. The guy played in The Babadook. He plays like the guy that the lead main character is like interested in at work. It's not like you're really given a whole lot to do comparative to this film. So
yeah, yeah. I don't know. The Babadook is whatever. The ending of that movie fucking ruined the whole movie for me.
It's scarier than The Exorcist. That's what I was told. That's what all those online reviews said.
Really? That it's scarier than The Exorcist?
That was some of those those blurbs that they showed in the credit in like the promotional material for the film was like it's scarier than The Exorcist. Like that's a lie.
Well, that's what they said, you know, like when all the like promo stuff came out for like fucking Blair Witch, and they were like, it's the most insane horror movie of the last like 10 years. Like I haven't seen something so scary, like in my entire life or whatever. And I go into the movie thinking like it's going to be the fucking most scary, brutal shit ever. And it's just like kind of not. I don't know. We could talk about Blair Witch on an entirely different podcast because of, you know, my love-hate relationship with that series of movies. But yeah, I don't know. The hype train, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with this.
Well, it's more of that the BS with the horror movies, certain people getting on certain horror movies kind of nuts. So
yeah, and I mean, I get it, you know, and everybody's got their opinions. So some guy's going to be like, dude, this is fucking amazing. And I'm going to be like, dude, nice. It must be pretty good. And then I'm going to watch it and I'm going to go, yeah, it's really not that great. So I don't know. It's maybe, I don't know. That's why I stopped looking at any and all information related to Split. And I'm going to wait until that movie's out and I'm going to go watch it. And I'm going to fucking hope to God that Shamalama Ding Dong didn't fuck it up. I don't know. It looks fucking tight. Fucking Will McAvoy is a fucking good actor too.
Before I ever talk about the next Kulturecast, Mr. Nis, anything you want to plug, talk about?
No, don't really have anything going on right now. Got a couple things in the works, but nothing to plug. I don't know. I'm giving this whole Twitter thing a try. I got out of the Facebook game, and so now I'm trying to tweet and stuff. So I don't know if you want to see my musings on shit that makes me angry, which is mostly what I do. It's just me ranting in 100 and whatever characters or less. So
if you're interested in what Tycho Magnetics has to say,
yeah, and if you understand that reference, then you're a fucking legend. But yeah, if you want to hear me rant, you can follow me on the Tweetster, on the Twatter. You can listen to me twat at Tycho Magnetics, and yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Kulturestash. And if you like what you're hearing now, you can head on over to cultureshock.com/Kulturecast to hear 100+ episodes of the Kulturecast, including last week's fantastic episode where Eric and I talked about Zodiac for an hour. And then we had some great interviews with John Lacey and Paul Schulze from the film. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and all podcast apps, Android and iOS. Patreon.com/culture_shocked is where you can go to kick a couple dollars our way so that we can keep the lights on our end. It is neither cheap nor free to bring you great content, so every little bit helps. Wovoka.bandcamp.com is where you can go to listen to Eric's band, play music, and you can give them money for what they do for a living.
Yes, we will Snowtown your ear holes. It's an endurance test.
Dear God. Well, I don't think you're wrong, so yeah, head on over to wovoka.bandcamp.com to check out them. The song Lament off of their first album, Sorrows, is the music we use for the Kulturecast. So we are always thankful to them for them being part of the Culture Shocked family and letting us use their awesome music as the intro-outro music for the Kulturecast. Next Kulturecast, we're going to be talking about A Cry in the Dark, which features the, I guess, kind of oft-quoted phrase now, did a dingo eat your baby? It's got Meryl Streep and Sam Neill in it, and it also takes place in Australia. What is going on?
Yeah.
We are just all over Australia recently. So, yeah. And did a dingo eat your baby? So, yeah, make sure to join us for that one.